Hey everybody, in this episode I'm getting back to my Kentucky roots and talking about 11 herbs and spices. That's not a good Kentucky accent. I'm not from Kentucky. The word cloves comes from the Old French clou de griffon, which means nail of the gillyflower, because it comes from gillyflowers and it looks a little bit like nails before you grind it up. Sage comes from the Old French salge, which comes from the Latin salvia, which comes from the Latin salvus, which means health, and that's because sage was used as a medicine. And it's actually going to lead us to a Proto-Indo-European web. Here we can see how the Proto-Indo-European word sol, meaning like whole, like entire, like W-H-O-L-E, came to mean a lot of interesting words in English that you wouldn't expect to be related. Let's start with the Greek. The Greek word olos also means like whole or entire, but katholikos means like according to the whole, which is an interesting way to say universal. And those led to the words hologram and Catholic. Hologram is like a depiction of the entire thing that you're depicting. Moving over to the Latin, you have three words there that are very related. You have salvia, salvus, and salvara. Salvia meaning sage, salvus meaning like health. I think that's a noun. And salvara being the verb, which is like to make healthy. Those three words all came into Old French but changed a lot. You have the salge, which means sage. You have salvation, which is salvation related to the salvara. And then you have sauf, which means safe. And all of those words came into English with the same essential meanings as they had in Old French. What's interesting, though, is they found a plant in the New World that's actually in the sage family, but it has psychoactive properties, and that's how we get the name of the drug salvia, straight up from the Latin word for sage. Now let's talk about cinnamon. Cinnamon comes from the Old French cinnamum, which comes from the Latin cinnamum, which was a term of endearment. Like, they called each other cinnamon, like, as a cute name, which is definitely a thing that people still do in English. That comes from the Greek cinnamon. There's too many. Hold on. There's a lot of steps to cinnamon, so I'm not going to act like I can memorize all these words. From the Greek cinnamon, from the Phoenician word that's probably like the Hebrew kinemon, or kinemom, and that probably meant Chinese amomum, which is another type of spice. And you can see kin, like that kind of makes sense in relation to Chinese. Thyme comes from the Old French thyme, which comes from the Latin thymum, which comes from the Greek thymon. And it's either a pre-Greek plant name or from a Proto-Indo-European word, do, which means, I said that kind of stupid, dahu, I don't know how to pronounce this, which means smoke, because it's a thing that is smoked to, like, you know what I mean, like, kind of like incense. Cumin comes from the Old French caymen, which comes from the Latin cuminum, which comes from the Greek kaimenon, which comes from a Semitic origin, all the way which borrowed from the Akkadian kamunu, which gives me another excuse to put cuneiform on the screen, which is exciting. Basil comes from the Old French basil, which comes from the Greek basilikon. So basilikon, phyton, means royal plant. The Greek word basilius means king, and that's related to the words basilica and basilisk. Basilisk is a little king. Dill comes from the Old English dilla, which is of a Germanic origin, definitely, because we have a cognate in Swedish, dill, German, dill, Dutch, dilla, and the Proto-Germanic reconstruction is dilia, but we don't know where that came from. So it kind of stops there. Could not even be Indo-European. Turmeric is a weird one. Turmeric comes from the Middle English. Behind the scenes, I did all this research at work off of a piece of printer paper because I didn't have a lot of time. So, time. Anyway, turmeric comes from the Middle English. Turmerita or turmerite. Turmerit. And also tarmaret. And that's not really of clear origin. It could be from the Old French, termarit. There was a 17th century book that said that that's where the word turmeric came from, but it doesn't really explain why it is called deserving earth in French. So you have terre or it could be a hard bastardization of the Arabic karkam. I wrote it in Arabic, and then I didn't write what vowels I should say, because I'm mad. Okay. So karkam became turmeric somehow, but I think that's a big stretch. I've never heard of a word coming from Arabic into English and the k becomes a t. Chili comes from the Nahuatl word chili, and it's the native word for peppers, for chili peppers. Nutmeg comes from the Old French noix muscade, which means musk nut. Fun fact, I took my Old French course. It's the only college class I've ever taken, and translated a cookbook from Old French to English. Not like I wasn't the first to do that, obviously, but I didn't translate the whole cookbook because I didn't have to. But noix muscade, I remember seeing that and thinking, and typing it into the resource that I had to translate Old French into English and thinking, why is it musknut? And finally, allspice. Allspice is very little compound of all and spice. It's first used in Western cooking in 1620 from the Jamaican pimento, which it's called allspice because it tastes like a combination of cinnamon, nutmeg, and cloves. Thank you for watching Ling King. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Sorry that I was looking off my paper for most of that. I try to memorize as much as I can, but it's just been a week.